this is Ree here. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate all of you. Om Klim Kali Ke Namaha. Don't forget to check out my website, paradoxastrology.com. Book your consultation today. I can help you with anything. And if you'd like more exclusive occult videos that I don't post on YouTube, consider subscribing to my Patreon. It also helps to support this channel. Okay, let's get into this video. Now, I just wanted to quickly talk about this crazy pileup of planets which will be happening at the end of March, and it's included in an eclipse. So a lot of people have been talking about this because this is a very rare event to have so many planets. We're gonna have 6 planets in Pisces at the same time, including Saturn and Rahu. So this is going to have a major impact on the world, a major impact where Pisces is in your chart as well. And it will change the world forever. When we see things like this, we know that it's going to affect many people. Now, what is it going to do is the big question, because this is something that does not happen every day. So we can only use our skills to speculate. But what I did is I looked back and to see when we had a Rahu and Saturn conjunction before. And this leads us back to 1968. So from 1968, I kind of looked at what happened before. And so, like I said, this isn't going to be exact because this time there's more than just Saturn and Rahu. And this is an eclipse, so remember that this energy is going to be lasting for months after. This isn't just that day. We have Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, Moon, Sun, Saturn, Rahu. That's a lot of planets. And so it's not going to be exactly the same, but we can still speculate. And I found a lot of things that may happen. Okay, so Saturn is going to be in Purva Bhadrapada. Now, Purva Bhadrapada is a very difficult nakshatra because it has to do with a lot of diabolical events. And it has to do with the dark side of the elites. Now, the deity that rules this is likened in the Western world to the Baphomet. So that's why this rules over secret societies, the music industry. What I've noticed too, because I was in the music industry for a long time, everybody I knew and every chart that I did, most people have a placement in Purva Bhadrapada. It's almost like you have to have that to make it in the industry. So we have already been seeing what's been happening with this nakshatra. Now, Saturn was in there all this year. And what happened? Everybody got exposed. The music industry got exposed. What is Saturn? Karma. So this karma came in. And they're going to tell you that Cat Williams predicted this, okay? And then they're going to tell you that Jaguar Wright is predicting this. Okay, I'm going to tell you something from being in the music industry. These people are not predicting this. These people are controlled opposition. So there's always a controlled opposition. Right now, if you really look at what's happening, you can see that there's a change in leadership. So they're trying to get rid of all the old people that were in the music industry. And this happens all the time. It's like a sweep. Once you pledge your allegiance to it and you've been doing good for this whole time, they get rid of the idols at a certain age so that you looked up to this person your whole life, and then now it crushes the soul of all the people that were so invested in this person. And they do this on purpose because psychologically this messes with people. Like, I could make an entire video about that. The people at the top who are exposing things are always in on it. You don't get to the top and get to speak about others in the media and that be just fine and nothing happened to you. They own all the media. So if you're going to be having these interviews, then you're going to be part of the agenda. Another reason is you should look at Cat Williams' necklace that he always wears is the symbol for chaos magic. So this whole thing is a ritual for chaos magic to cause chaos. And other things, like I could break down chaos magic, but not in this video. Now, this has been exposing celebrities. So now the latest, as I'm recording this video, has been Jay-Z. And there's going to be many, many others. So how I see that happening is more exposure of the elites. But this exposure is calculated and it is done based on the agenda. So this is them deciding that now it's your time to get exposed, because they always collect all this evidence on you, and when they're ready to get rid of you, then it's your time and you gotta go. Now you're sacrificed. Sometimes they're playing the part and they aren't really getting thrown under the bus. They're playing the part of the villain as well. So just remember that. So more exposure of the elites. Now, another thing that we can see is when we have a pileup of planets like this in Pisces in a water sign. I looked at, there was a tsunami, I can't remember the exact date, but in Japan. This happened when we did have a few planets in Pisces as well. And because of all these planets, there's definitely going to be a lot to do with water, and a tsunami is something that can happen. That is a likely thing to happen. There's also going to be major floods next year as well, because Jupiter will enter Ardra Nakshatra, which is the storm god. So I predict there's going to be massive floods as well. Everything to do with water, or storms to do with water, that we've never seen before. The other thing I see, because when we have Saturn and Rahu come together, this amplifies either Saturn or Rahu. The last time this happened in Pisces in 1968, there was a complete revolution. And I can see that happening because we also have Rahu that's going to go into Aquarius, which causes a revolution. They've been gearing up on this. And the reason I say that is because 1968 was a year of turmoil and change, they called it. And this is all over the world. May 1968, there was a student revolt in Paris, which was the worst rioting since 1930s. It was an era of youth culture, they say. The youth felt that they were living in a political dictatorship, and they revolted. And this was the biggest riots that they had seen since 1930. So there was riots in Paris. I won't go into the details because it's just too much. You can go look it up if you want to know more details. And then also 1968 was a huge turning point for the US. There was social and political upheavals that changed the country forever. One, there was a Navy ship that was lost, so that can definitely happen. Accidents in the water, spillage into the water as well. Rahu can be chemicals as well. That's something we have to really consider. A Navy ship going down, yes. There was two prominent figures that died. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy both died. And because of that, then we had, in Washington, D.C. was the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1968, and it heightened social unrest over Vietnam War, values, race. There was a lot to do with women's issues. So you can see what's happening right now in the US. Because Trump was elected, people feel that on the other side, that their rights have been taken away. Women feel that, and the trans community also feel that as well. I can see that this is kind of building already, where you're going to have people rebel against President Trump, and maybe that's actually once he gets in. I don't know what's going to spark it exactly at that time, but I could definitely see this happening where people revolt. And also they start revolting because of the war. They start protesting all of this. So people want their rights back. They feel like their rights are gone, especially to do with like women, because that's Venus in retrograde. Then we also have Mercury in retrograde, which is trans, gays. Mars and Saturn will be aspecting each other all year, and it's the year of Mars. So that is showing that there's going to be a lot of war, and I think people are going to get very sick of it. They're going to start protesting. There's also, I believe that there could be a protest just because of the just cost of living. People are just kind of sick of it, and it may be slightly still going up, especially I think in Canada, people are going to revolt against it with these tariffs as well. Things are going to become more expensive, and then people just can't afford it and they start rebelling. They could also, like I said, everything is a show, everything is a play. They could eliminate someone who is very influential and then that causes mass riots. Now this person is gone, somebody that people really look up to, because there's a lot of fishy things that happen with the two people that I mentioned who died. A lot of people say that was an inside job. So that could definitely happen. Trump does have to be careful with certain things, but I haven't looked at the complete chart to see. I was just thinking about how K2 goes in his first house and then Saturn will be in his 8th house. So there's just a few things that I can see there, but it could be somebody very, very prominent that is killed. This is always done on purpose. People could be protesting also how the wealth is going to the government and making people richer and not going to the people. Now, another thing is that this nakshatra, because it is the nakshatra of the secret societies and elite and people who worship these dark entities, there can be definitely a lot of staged events that are actually rituals.
Hey everyone, I just had to add this part in because it came to my attention that I already made a video about March 27th, 2025. And that's because in June 2022, there was a protester that tied herself to the net during the 2022 French Open men's semifinals. And on her shirt, it said, "We have 1,028 days left," which comes to March 27th, 2025. And that's when the moon is conjunct Saturn in Purva Bhadrapada. So we could definitely see an event happening on that day if this thing is correct.
And if you didn't know, this is what the elites do. They have very high level occultists and they work based on rituals, and everything is a play. So there can be a lot of these themes and these fake stories which are actually just rituals, or the killing off of people which are actually rituals. This nakshatra also has to do with dangerous technology, and this could be dangerous technology from the elites that ends up. This nakshatra is about death. There's no way around it. It's about death. And so it's showing us a mass karmic event that can happen, that can spark all over the world. It's also about imprisonment too, because this is Pisces. This is isolation, imprisonment, but also death. These are the death nakshatras being highlighted. But death is also death of the ego. So this is a prominent nakshatra, and Pisces is as well. And having these many planets, especially during an eclipse, you have the ability to enlighten yourself and have a complete like samadhi level of enlightenment. A lot of yogis are waiting for this. This is actually a very good position for spiritual work, that you can hit heights that you've never hit before. You can become a completely different person. Now, the other thing I noticed, because we do have Mercury there, later on in the year, we're going to have K2 go into the 2nd house of Bitcoin's chart and Rahu in the 8th house. It's not a good position. Jupiter is going to go in its 12th house. It's having a lot of gains because of the good positions that it's in right now. It's up to 100,000 plus or something like that. But what goes up comes down. So there can be a lot of ups and downs in the markets, and there could be a massive down that affects everybody that was investing. That's a very big possibility. I'll make a video about that. It would probably have to bring in foreign investors, but there can be huge ups and downs in the markets. This can increase depression and suicide, unfortunately, for many. Now, the other thing, now this is Pisces, which is hospitalizations. And on the other side, we have Virgo opposing it, which is health. So another thing that happened in 1968 was an estimated 100,000 Americans died from H3N2 flu. There is a possibility of some kind of pandemic, and we can't believe the government, but I'm just saying that there could be a lot of events that can be real or cannot be real. Let's just say that, because we already have been through what happens during a pandemic. That is something that could definitely happen. And there could also be protests with racial equality. These themes can come up, as happened in 1968. This will be happening in the 4th house of the US, so there can be some kind of protests in the homelands. So this is definitely going to affect the homelands of the United States. And this is going to affect Canada's 12th house. So there's some kind of loss and ending for Canada, some kind of death. Russia, this will affect its foreign affairs. It conjuncts its Mars, I believe, as well. This has to do with the war. Now, another thing that I noticed, which doesn't have anything to do with this, it was just with next year, and then I'm gonna have a video about all my predictions for next year. This is just a bit of it. So this year we had Drake and Kendrick Lamar, okay, having this rap beef. And I thought that was very interesting because it reminded me a lot of Tupac and Biggie. And it was the same transits as when Tupac and Biggie were beefing. It reminded me of that because Drake is the East and then Kendrick is the West, East versus West. And they always do this thing because it gets people to battle each other in the East and the West to try to say who's better, and then it causes crime and violence. They know how to manipulate the population. But I can see this happening again. So that beef ended with Drake being accused of being a pedophile. Like, all of this is a play, okay? I'll tell you, from being in the music industry, people who say they hate each other are actually friends behind closed doors and just beefing with each other for money to act. So there was a Saturn K2 conjunction in 1996 when Tupac was shot. The beef that they had, Biggie and Tupac, was in 94, and then Tupac ended up being accused of sexual assault and then later died in 1996. Because there's a prominent figure that's going to die this year, who knows? Who knows? Are they going to make Drake the new Tupac? I don't know. I'm just looking at patterns and just showing you how these things play out, and usually play out every time they come back. So I don't know, but it's just one theory. So that's just a little bit about what I see happening. I thank you so much for watching. I'll have another video coming up soon, and I'll see you in the next one.